My name is Mano Priya, that belongs to Department of English. Now I'm going to talk about Paradise Lost Book 1. It was written by John Milton. Now first I want to tell about Milton's style in writing his poetry. He is known for his grandeur in writing. He will be using too many allusions and vocabularies. His sentence construction will be different when compared to the other poets. He will be using extended similes, and also repetition of images will be seen in his poems when compared to the other poets. And first, now I want to explain what type of work Paradise Lost is. Paradise Lost is an epic poem which, like the epic poems of Homer, Dante, Virgil and Goethe, tells a story about momentous events while incorporating grand themes that are timeless and universal. Here the theme is grand because it talks about the seduction of evil by Saturn. Next, here Milton took his sources from other Greek and Latin poems, namely Milton used the Bible, Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, Virgil's Aeneid and the stories in Greco-Roman mythology as sources of information and as writing models. The Bible's book of Genesis is the main source for his retelling of the story of creation and the first humans, Adam and Eve. Now let us see about his style and verse format in the Paradise Lost. Milton wrote Paradise Lost in dignified, lofty, melodic English free of any colloquialisms and slang that would have limited the work's timelessness and universality. The format, Milton says in an introductory note, is English heroic verse without rhyme. In other words, blank verse, the same verse form used by Shakespeare in his plays, and not only Shakespeare but also his contemporary Christopher Marlowe in Dr. Faustus. Settings. Here the Paradise Lost have some concentrating in main three form of places, namely the settings are heaven, hell, the firmament. Here firmament is also called as chaos, where the chaos will be taking place in hell and heaven because of the fight between Saturn and the god, and also about earth. And especially book 1 deals only in the place of hell. The settings is concentrated by Milton only in hell, and later on in book 9 it will be concentrated in heaven. Now let us see the main theme of Paradise Lost Book 1. In Book 1 of Paradise Lost, Milton reveals the central theme of the work, that is to justify the ways of God to man. Here he will be saying what are the ways to be done by the human beings or the other evil angels to go near to the God. Because Saturn is moving against God because of jealous. So here the main theme is people should not have any jealous towards others. So that is the main way to go before God. To reach God. Here justify means to explain and defend, and ultimately to vindicate God's course of action in dealing with Adam and Eve after they succumbed to the temptation of Satan and ate forbidden fruit. Other themes in this poems are inordinate pride, that is deals to Saturn's downfall and his continuing defiance of God. Next theme is envy. Arising from Saturn's pride, it makes him jealous of God the Son, who is the favorite of God the Father. The next theme is about revenge. It motivates Saturn to corrupt Adam and Eve and thereby subvert God's plans. And the final one is about vanity. It leads Eve to believe under the temptation of Saturn that she can become godlike. And this themes or resemblance to Dr. Faustus' 7 deadly sins, and that is what Milton is also depicting in his poems, which the man should avoid in order to go towards the feet of God. Among the classical conventions, Milton used some of the following things, that is invocation of the muse. This was the first and foremost thing where all the poets will be using invocation of the muses, in which a writer requests divine help in composing his work. Next, he deals about the beginning the story in the middle, a literary convention known by its Latin term in media res. This is the technique he used, but when other poets where they will be starting from the beginning, but here in the book 1 he starts in the middle, that is not dealing about the fight, but he is dealing about the consequence after Saturn facing after the fight. Next, such a convention allows a writer to begin his story at an exciting part, then flash back to fill the reader in on details leading up to that exciting part. Next, he is using in announcing or introducing a list of characters who play a major role in the story. For example, he will be using some semi-gods and other main leaders who will be taking part in the army of Saturn. They may speak at some length about how to resolve a problem, that is, as the followers of Saturn do early in Paradise Lost. Next, he used technique conflict in the celestial realm. Divine beings fight and scheme against one another in the epics of Homer and Virgil, and they do so in Paradise Lost on a grand scale, with Saturn and his forces opposing God and his forces. Next, he uses the dramatic irony. Dramatic irony is a literary device in which a character in a story fails to see or understand what is obvious to the audience or readers. Dramatic irony appears frequently in the plays of the ancient Greeks. For example, in Oedipus Rex by Sophocles, dramatic irony occurs when Oedipus fails to realize what the audience knows, that he married his own mother. In Paradise Lost, similarly, dramatic irony also occurs when Saturn and his followers fail to understand that it is impossible ultimately thwart or circumvent divine will and justice. Next, about important characters. Here, Saturn is compared Saturn is considered to be the hero of the poem in Book 1. Saturn, he is also called as Lucifer or Archfiend, is powerful and prideful angel who, with legions of supporters, leads an unsuccessful rebellion against God and suffers eternal damnation. To gain revenge, he devises a plan to corrupt God's newly created beings, Adam and Eve, through deceit. Modern readers often admire him for his steely defiance. He would rather rule in hell, he says, than serve in heaven. It was not Milton's intent, however, to create an admirable character. Rather, his intent was to create a character of colossal hatred, that is loathsome, execrable, incurably remorseless. Now we are seeing Gustav Dorot's depiction of Saturn rousing the other fallen angel from John Milton's Paradise Lost, and this scene itself picturizing the atmosphere of hell and also the psychological setup of the fallen evil angels, and also Saturn standing in between as a leader and making through his words arousing the psychological depression of the other fallen evil angels. And this is the best proof for the Saturn's heroic character even in the collapsed stage. Next, in Milton's Paradise Lost, we are also having other minor fallen angels, that is Gabriel, Raphael, Michael, Uriel. They are powerful and fearless angels on the side of God. Next, we are seeing about Beelzebub, Mammon, Belial, Moloch. They are powerful leaders in Saturn's army. In a great council in hell, each of them speaks his mind on what policy devilkind should follow after losing paradise. Should they make a new war? Should they make peace? All these type of questions are discussed by these fallen angels with the Saturn. Saturn used to be one of the most important of God's angels, but rebelled when God declared the sun to be above all the angels in glory. Saturn persuaded a third of the angels to rebel with him and declared war on God. Saturn was defeated by the sun and cast into hell with all the other rebel angels. The first characteristics is that feelings and emotions are very important to them. This is very apparent in Milton's Paradise Lost. The second characteristic of the romantic hero is Satanism. Satanism is the romantic period, was rebellion in the name of individualism, humanism and self-reliance. Saturn is not an epic hero. Could he perhaps be a romantic hero? By the end of the 18th century, religious beliefs changed and belief in the devil among the higher and more literate classes had nearly disappeared. Yet romantic authors and painters in England and on the continent were fascinated with myth of Saturn. So in this way, we can say that Saturn became a true hero. Saturn may not be romantic hero originally, but he became a hero in the eyes of romantics. That's all that I have given about what are the features of Milton in his poetry, and also the main character Saturn, and also about the minor characters. Thank you.